Hello, welcome back to the Before the Battle podcast. This is our second ever episode, and I'm really excited. I'm joined by
Richard Hughes, leader of the Order of the Blade.
And yeah, this is our second ever episode. I'm really looking forward to getting straight into it. My name is Caden. I go by they, them pronouns. And yeah, this is our podcast. We're really excited to bring our topic to the table. So, our topic for this episode is the different types of training with weapons. So we're going to be covering BOHA, reenactment, HEMA, all sorts of stuff, and I'm really looking forward to it because I know nothing about this topic. So this will be very fun.
It's quite difficult. There's a hell of a lot to it, and a hell of a lot of strong opinions about what training should be and how it should form and all the rest of it. So it's one of those topics that is an ongoing conversation for a lot of people, particularly as they start, and then after they've been in it for like 10 years or so, and then they guess that having some real opinions after that point.
This will be so much fun to unpack, I think. It'll be good to pick your brain about all of this. I'm really looking forward to it.
Go for it.
Right. We're going to start with what we train with as the Order of the Blade, what we do first.
Yeah, I think this is one of those topics which confuses a lot of people because we wear quite a few hats depending on who we're talking to.
Yes.
So the broad system that we have within the Order of the Blade is called Historic Martial Combat. It's a synthesis of multiple different training styles, as well as other martial arts being thrown into the mix, which we're in the process of developing. So what most people will see as familiar from our output is all the lovely swordplay and various weapon work that goes on. We are going to be moving into things like archery, unarmed combat, a bit of dagger work, armoured stuff. There's a lot of evolving components to this where they all mix in together. The closest thing I would say that is accurate for us and most people would have is historic fencing. So historical fencing.
Right.
That is the sort of the closest we are to if I was to put a name to it. What this means, from my perspective at least, other people will have plenty of other opinions. What this means for me is we are fencing with historical weapons, and that about covers the most of it.
Okay, but we have certain weapons that aren't specifically from history. They're from films, TV shows, and...
As I said, it does. This is why this is why I say we are closest to historical fencing.
Yeah.
Historical fencing gets used as sort of a catch-all term to be used in the same breath as something like HEMA, Historical European Martial Arts. There's a couple of reasons why I don't necessarily jump on that bandwagon, and the training style we use isn't sourced from historic manuals per se. So we can't point to a single historical manual which we train from either exclusively or alongside other historic manuals, particularly from the European diaspora of weapons.
Okay.
HEMA explicitly goes from that angle. So that hat doesn't fit us necessarily. And as you pointed out, we're not purely historical either. I mean, I've just taken the recent batch of weapons orders in, and I can promise you there are some weapons in there that I have never seen. What the hell? I've never seen anybody use a Bident, and yet Errant, one of our instructors down in Plymouth, now has a Bident. So
it's a really cool weapon. It's beautiful.
I saw it getting used last night. I was like, yeah, I hate it. Thanks. But it's but it's one of those things. Yeah, we don't have necessarily that weapon has existed, but more from a fishing point of view as opposed to let's catch something else other than a fish. So
it's also it's also related to a Greek god called Hades. So Hades is the god of the underworld, and his symbol is a Bident.
Yeah, as I said, like there are allusions to this weapon existing. It will have been a thing. Whether we have any direct reference for how it was trained, we honestly have no idea.
Yeah.
We can make inferences of it's a spear with extra pokey bits, shrug, and go from there. But there's nothing direct, hey, this is how it was used, and we have a rough idea. So this is where the conversation of how we train becomes really important. From our last episode, you'll remember that we sort of look at training individuals as opposed to styles, and we're really centric on that. This is doubly important when we design training, because yes, from an extant point of view, there is only so many ways to swing a weapon.
Yeah.
I mean, when our arms are not weirdly placed, we can always say they are going to be socketed in a shoulder. That shoulder is going to be on the upper torso. We can say these things with relative confidence, unless, serious disability comes into play and then things get really weird. But
hypermobility.
Oh, don't get me started. But so they go, hey, why's that shoulder not in? Oh, they're just hypermobile. Yeah, but still. Ugh.
I wake up and my hip is out of place. So it's a normal everyday moment for me.
So when we're designing training systems, we really have to be careful with what we're training the person to do with that weapon and why, ultimately. So what I developed was a syllabus called the Primus, which is essentially your bare bones how not to be crap with weapons. Now that's not the no, but you laugh, but it's legitimately what it is, because you have to start somewhere. A lot of manuals, which, don't get me wrong, have techniques and they are really good, but they're not good teaching aids unless you already know a lot of material or you've figured out what's actually going on. It takes a lot to put that back in your brain. So the Primus is built to actually get you to square one.
Yeah.
I have a good idea of how this weapon works. I can start doing some things with it. Then you can start developing your own understanding. So the Primus covers things like how to cut, how to block, how to thrust, how to parry, how to move.
Yeah.
And it gives you some really good, solid bases to play with. Now, there are some counters in there. There are some gross mechanics which form counters with its idea of things like timing, distance, response times, attacking within reflex time. All of these different components which are universal to combat, no matter how you choose to flavour it, no matter how you try to take it up one step further with, hey, I prefer this brand of history or this brand of weapon. You're always going to follow the same basis.
Yeah.
So the Primus syllabus is built with that in mind. It's built to arm the person, whoever that is, whatever their interest, with a baseline of you are not crap in combat.
Okay. How did you end up making it so universal? Because that must have been really fucking difficult to do.
I mean, fucking difficult would absolutely be a great way of putting it. Distilled through decades of me being a turbo nerd with every single weapon I could put my hands on, I think is the grand idea. So I started as
fair enough
with Japanese martial arts mostly.
Yeah.
Now, I think uniquely to Japanese martial arts, some of them really benefit being a certain size and shape, which the Japanese mostly inhabit. Now, I'm not the size and shape of the average Japanese person.
No, you are.
No, so, yeah. To put into context, as if you remember from last session, I'm really bloody big. So, when I started with jiu-jitsu in particular, I found it really difficult to get my centre of gravity lower than other people's to execute the throws, because that is by and large what's needed. That, when you are as big as I am, just doesn't work sometimes. So what I had to do then was unpick what they were actually trying to get me to do, not just go, oh, just lower your body weight because that's where you need to be. Try and understand the mechanics underneath what they're trying to tell me to do, and remap my body to them. So this really got me onto the idea of breaking every technique I'm seeing down into its base components.
That's really cool.
From there, once I got that thinking into play and I was able to actually re-engage with the style of jiu-jitsu I was doing at the time in a much more impact way and actually able to do pretty well for myself, that's when I took that thinking and went, hang on, no, there was something there. That was something. And then I just started looking at other martial arts and just kept going through and just being able to break down what they were saying into gross mechanics, rather than having the layers of different context which most martial arts will have put through the ringer. So to give an example, a particular cut can be named X in one syllabus, but you'll find something that's similar, but not quite the same, named Y in another.
Yeah.
Both of those cuts are going to use, by and large, the same mechanics, but there will be differences based on tactics, the style of the weapon, the person using them, the framework of the fight in hand. There could be a bunch of reasons why the technique has changed slightly. But for me, they share the same base root.
Yeah.
So they inhabit the same space of training, the same training space in terms of they are the same cut. You're just doing them slightly differently depending on what you're meeting, which every martial artist has had to adapt techniques to meet what they're facing at all times.
Yeah, definitely.
So for me, I very much went, why are we calling a spade a shovel? They achieve the same bloody thing. All right, one's got a slightly different handle, but, so what? They're achieving the same goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sort of thing can be divisive in martial communities, which is why it gets really interesting when you say, hey, what do you do? Well, fighting with weapons kind of covers most of it right now. But there's obviously a lot more to unpack. We do sit very closer to historical fencing in terms of how we operate, so we're applying pretty much the same rules. We follow the same kit rules, so we can live in the same space, but it doesn't mean we're training the same way. And I would argue even most HEMA groups aren't training the same way as the next HEMA group over. The idea of HEMA being this universal monolith of this is exactly what we're doing, every club's different.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of the good thing about HEMA is because you can find a club that works for you rather than being shoved into a box.
It can be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of different components in that. So if you have, say, one group which particularly likes a weapon or manuscript in particular, and that's what their instructor is really focused on, but if that idea doesn't gel with you or you don't like that idea, where are you moving to? What else is available? It takes some effort on the part of the practitioner to look around and see what's available. What I wanted to do was create an open platform that allowed people to see what interested them, which went beyond just HEMA.
Yeah, we've got such a variety of people and weapons and personalities in the Order of the Blade, and it's just such a good community. And it's such a wide community as well. Like, yeah, we're all nerds, we're all a bit weird, but that's the best part about us.
I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. It's as much as there's enough division between what different training styles exist, what sort of rules you obey as a group, what you're doing the training for, end of the day. I mean, that's another big conversation point. Reality is, I mean, I remember someone sat at one of our meals after training. Just hands up. There's about 30 people here. Hands up. Put your hand up if you have played D&D or you play Warhammer, and pretty much everyone put their hands up. We can't escape the fact we are nerds. That's one thing we can't escape.
It's the best part about us. At least we can talk about stuff.
I mean, I say the best part for us is we get to hit each other with swords and call it for fun. So, I mean, I personally would say that's the best part, but then again, that is my job. So, I'm slightly biased.
Not by a lot, though. You're only slightly.
It's a lot. I'm not going to lie. When I can pay myself enough money to survive, I think I'll call that successful.
It's already successful.
Yeah. Next point. So, in terms of training style, in terms of training types, I mean, when you're training particularly with weapons, it's not like with boxing where you can take a couple of hits and you can keep carrying on. We have to treat the weapons as live. So, lethal.
Yeah.
So any hit, doesn't matter where it is, hand, foot, face, body, arm, leg, we don't care. You've hit us, therefore we have lost that round. And we just go to reset. So every bit of our training is built with the intent of we don't let that weapon hit us, and we go from that premise.
As we say in the Order, rule number 1 is don't die.
It's a big rule. Yeah, I mean, general life advice, always obey rule 1.
Yep.
Rule 2 is deal with the other guy, but I mean, we'll deal with rule 2 later. Let's deal with rule 1 of not dying as the first port of call. But that is essentially how I try and get people to think about training, is your first port of call should be defense. Dealing with the threat in front of you by not letting it hit you. then go figure out what you can do within that space afterwards.
So let's talk about the other types of training, because this is completely new to me and I'm really interested to learn the differences and the similarities between reenactment, Boha, all kinds of stuff to what we do. It's really interesting to me.
So just to start with, our closest link in terms of the martial sphere would probably be HEMA, Historical European Martial Arts. Their training base, we can largely come to the same ideas. We've got the same kit, gear, we obey many of the same rules in terms of our premises and the way we go approach a fight. But the training base is different. So with HEMA, you are specifically targeting a manual from a point of history. Some people do multiple sources, some people only do one, and that's what they specialize in. But HEMA is explicitly about trying to follow historical manuals and recreating those techniques.
Yeah.
So I don't say I do HEMA, and I don't think I've ever said that I teach HEMA as part of the order. I see what I do as prepare people to go into those spaces with a bit more awareness of what a sword is. Because if you think most of these manuals would be written for the nobility and the upper class back in the days they were written, they were not written for a common soldier just to go read and figure out how to fight better. They were written for nobles, lords, and, the warrior class, effectively.
Yeah.
Which is what your knights were. Now, they would have been trained from a very young age with weapons, armour, all of this, and have a good grasp of swordplay before they were taught by a fencing master.
Okay.
So my position really is a case of I'm doing an adjacent thing to HEMA, but preparing them to look at these manuals and get more ideas out of them because they have a good basis of swordplay. They know how to fight. They understand mechanics. They understand the principles underlying to combat, particularly weapons combat. So they can now move into these spaces and go, hey, I understand what you're talking about. I can go learn new tricks.
Yeah.
Because there'll be some historic manuals that I have no interest in. I just don't. I'm not a rapier person, but I can respect what a rapier can do. And I know there's manuals out there, a lot of manuals, particularly on rapier.
Yeah, because it was a huge weapon back in old age France and Italy and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, you got to remember as well, rapier existed at the time of the Renaissance when people were writing a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So your rapier, your side sword, these weapons were well studied and practiced within different schools, as you mentioned, particularly Italian fencing schools.
Yeah.
These were huge, and it was a well-documented series. Now, do I have an interest in all of those? No, I'm not personally an historian. I would never call myself a historian. I respect history too much and the work actual historians do to know that my armchair and anthropology / martial art culture is not equivocal to a good knowledge of history. It's not the same thing, and I would never claim it is. But I can prepare people to step into that side if it interests them and go, hey, this is now available. It was always available, but now you've got a chance of understanding what it's saying off your own understanding.
Yeah.
So very much a case of we're HEMA adjacent, in a sense of I'll get people the ability to go, hey, I can research this stuff on my own and find ideas. Cool as hell, and we provide a testing bed should you want to come back and play in those same rules and try and see if those techniques actually work for you. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't.
Yeah. It's really interesting seeing the difference between what we do as well as like the wider HEMA community. It's a bit odd, if I'm honest.
I think one of the most contentious points, I mean, this is very much a very recent contentious point, is particularly the Daymax. The people who are in the community will know that I'm recording this the second that got mentioned, but if we draw particularly into reenactment side now, reenactment typically tries to target a period of history and tries to bring it back to life through recreation. And they will physically wear the clothing they wore at the time, or try and get as close to it as we can so we understand their life better. It's very closely linked to anthropology.
Yeah.
Reenactment tries to recreate that exact scenario using the same kit. Now, that creates an issue as far as a martial arts concerned when the safety comes into play, because you can't use the old armour with, like, let's say, particularly the Viking era and early Norman era, where you have, like, the nasal helms and you don't have much head covering, not to the same level. There's no way I could train going at throwing a cut to your head at force and expect the equipment from a reenactment age to hold up. There's just a high chance of injury, which is prevalent and well known within the reenactment community. So they have a rule set which gets around that problem. So you're still able to wear the kit you would in history, which has a great purpose and a great study from a historical perspective. But you have to limit the martial arts to be able to do it. That isn't necessarily a problem because, again, you have to question what you're training for. If you want to live in that Viking era and you're not as worried about being as combat effective, but you're being more historically authentic, reenactment's probably your jam. But I like to focus on the martial art first and foremost, and everything else takes a back seat to the martial art.
Yeah.
So I look at something like what Rob Newton does, who's big into his axe work, huge and an incredible axe fighter. Both Dane and hand axe. It's watching it, he's like going, no, I can believe the myths of Stamford Bridge now.
Yeah, he's one of our instructors at Loughborough, as well as a couple others, and his axe work is actually incredible. It's so easy to understand, yet so complicated at the same time. It's beautiful work.
I'll say it right now, I couldn't do axe work the same way he does. There's no way. I'm not as interested in axes, truthfully. But having watched him work, I'm going, no. There's a lot there. There's a lot of technique which isn't as well credited. Now, why Dane axe doesn't get studied as much within normal context, the sad truth is there's no real sources for it. We've got historical accounts, but they don't count as sources of here's how you would use the weapon and here's the system for it, because it was never really recorded, or if it was, we don't have access to those records.
Yeah.
So you have to recreate it from scratch. So this is where we blend into reenactment a little bit, because we do use some of the same weapons, but rather than focus on the purely historical or anthropological side, we focused on the martial arts side purely. So we can go, we can let that Dane axe hit a face, because our kit allows it to. Now, the same rules of control and safety apply as would to any fight, but because there isn't sources for the Dane axe specifically, Hema tends to have issue with it and just usually parrots or just go do halberd, but they're not the same weapon.
No.
So for me, I like sitting where we do because we can draw from the more reenactor side, people who do have interest in the Viking combat, your Norman reenactment, your early medieval stuff, and draw from that side and have some fun with it.
Yeah, it's really cool to see people play with that kind of side of swordplay, not just swordplay, obviously, with weapon play. So a lot of people that I've spoken to want to look into the Roman gladiator side of history, and it's
huge. Loads of requests.
Yeah, it's insane. And because that was such a huge part of history, the Roman Empire, everyone is kind of drawn to it. It's like a moth to a flame. And it's so wonderful to see that completely just expand and for everyone's ideas to just overflow, explode. It's wonderful.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. We've again recently taken an order from Friel where there is a Gladius in that kit. And I'm going, and everyone that holds it goes, no, that's a nice weapon. We like that.
Yeah.
But being able to recreate the combat style and put it into play is actually really interesting. But again, it's that personal journey. I always ape it back to, what is the reason why this person wants to wield these weapons? And if it is, I happen to love the Roman Empire, Byzantine era, really interests me. It's like, cool, that's your jam. You found your weird. Go play with it.
It's brilliant. I love it so much. I also kind of want to lean into the fact that we don't just focus on European martial arts, which is another way we branch out from He-Man. I want to look at the Asiatic martial arts. So Japanese, Chinese. There are some really interesting Asian weapons that really interest me.
Yeah, and I love having an open space where we can bring these weapons into play. This is why a lot of what the Order does in practice uses synthetic weapons. As much as getting a steel trainer is really cool, it's also a lot of development time.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I'm going to do a huge shout out to Akado Armory, that based over in the US. They have done a lot of work over the last 6 years or so now to bring steel trainers for the Asiatic martial arts up into play. So there are fantastic sparring katanas from them. They've just started moving into Chinese weapons, so the Daos and the Yans, which have been absolutely, they are incredible. I want to get my hands on some. They look fantastic, and I know the guy that runs them, and the effort he puts into it is astronomical. So I have no doubt that they are going to be fantastic training tools. So for me, I need to have a space where people who have an interest in katanas, who have an interest in Chinese martial arts, and particular weapon arts that come from those eras, do have exactly the same place to come in and train and test their ideas and get a realistic taste of combat without being inundated to a point with it's not one particular training style. No, we don't. We don't run one particular training style. If I went up to the front of my class and said, hey, we're just doing Sabre today, there's a load of people with longsword looking at me going, what? I'm not interested in that. I'll just fuck off. I'll just go into my corner and do my thing. Cheers, boss.
I think I can actually think of a couple of people that might start clutching their pearls.
Or clutching their long swords, rapiers, daggers, dual swords, axes, shields, staff, polearm. You get the idea. So for me, it is about creating that open space and where you can have like the Japanese martial arts to go, yeah, for somebody who really likes the katana, is into Japanese culture and knows a lot about it. I mean, I'm one person that is my martial upbringing to a large degree.
Yeah.
You know, for me to have that space and go, yeah, no, I can grab a katana if I want to. I can grab a dai katana. I can grab a wakizashi and pair it. You know, I can train these things and have a play. It's great for me to be able to do that. And I think that a broad church approach where you do allow everyone to come in and have a go only benefits everyone else.
What's your opinion of people coming into the swordplay side of things from a anime-loving perspective?
There are some ideas I have to beat out the head. Mostly, you can't do half the stuff you've seen. Trust me, everyone wishes they could. I wish I had knees that worked. We can all live in Fantasyland, kid. But for me, it is very much a case of, okay, no, these weapons of interest, you have got an interest in this from this perspective. Cool. I can't bash anyone too hard because I can put my hand up and say, I'm a kid that went and saw, you know, Star Wars Episode 1 when it first came out in the cinema. Lord of the Rings was exactly the same time. Yeah, I came from that era. And I won't lie, that was very much my entry, and I was obsessed from that point. So I cannot turn around and go, you're just an anime fan. Dude, it's only because it got a live action scene that it was actually socially acceptable. Like, come off it. Like, get out your fucking skull. You're a nerd, just like the people you're talking to. Yep. Over time and over the course of training, realistic training has said, okay, these things aren't possible. I now have to do something else. Okay, yeah, fine. Now, this idea of me, you know, doing a spinning back kick is not going to be anything in my repertoire anytime soon. I said, aforementioned knees will not agree with me. But at the same time, those same people, you know, I mean, I would, you know, I still love the scene where Aragorn's gone, no, I'm going to take this longsword and just pile in to a bunch of orcs and just hack them to pieces. Cool as hell scene. Love it to pieces. No, I'm not that cool, and I'm never going to be that good. Like, that's just not a thing. But it's the same thing with anyone who has an anime perspective or has come from things like manga, any sort of like nerd culture that has brought up this idea of, hey, swordplay's cool again. Yeah, it is, mate. We're doing it. Jump in.
I think also a big push from swordplay was caused by like Breath of the Wild, the Legend of Zelda game, and Tears of the Kingdom and stuff, because they introduced so many different weapons into that game that got a lot more traction and notice because it's such a big franchise and fandom.
I mean, you've also got things like, as the aforementioned Star Wars will always bring people in. I mean, hey, Ludo Sports been able to capitalize on that completely. Yeah. You have, Witcher series?
Yes.
The Witcher as a whole, games, books, questionable TV series aside, you know, there's a lot of material that goes on there. I mean, let's take it one step further. Arthurian legend.
Yeah.
For Brits in particular, that could absolutely tick a box and absolutely go, no, I'm here because I enjoy this to a degree. There are so many different aspects which you can draw from like the fantasy, fantasy history. It's all the same to me. You're interested in swordplay. Let's go train swordplay.
Yeah.
That's what I'm interested in. That's the bit that makes me want to train with you because you're keen. If I start bashing that keen out of you because I'm having to do, you have to do this, 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 and this, that isn't anything to do with logical safety or, there's not a rationale behind it. It's just because I want you to do this. No, sod off. Like, am I going to have the same keen for a Dao as I would for a longsword or a sword and shield? No. Personally, I am not going to have the same keen. It's a saber. Me and sabers don't get along. That is a well-documented fact. But
I think it's also a wide opinion in the Order of the Blade.
We'll leave that crayon-eating server to one side for a second. But for, I don't have as huge interest in those weapons. But for me to go, just because I'm not interested, I am only going to teach you what I know from longsword and sword and shield. When you have an active interest in saber, that's not a good conversation. That'll just drive people away and go, oh, well, don't do this then. It could be a case of they've had a casual interest and they want a good place to train. I have to provide that good place to train. Because once they're in and they're training them a new opponent. Fantastic. I like opponents. You don't get a good combat opponent without a good range of opponents to fight against. You just don't do it. So I care less about your reasons for coming to training as I do about the safety of making sure you have a space to train it.
Yeah.
I have an interest from a point of view of I want you to be interested, I want to understand you, but in terms of it comes to the training, if it floats your boat and you're here, fine by me, let's go train.
Yeah.
It's very much my mantra on these things.
It's a good mantra to have. I also want to talk about Bowhurt because that is a completely new ballpark for me.
So Bowhurt, I'll say this right now, I have a lot of time for. And if my 6'10" ass was easier to get into armour and cheaper, I would probably be doing it.
Really?
Oh, God, yeah. Absolutely. So Bowhurt is essentially reenactment that's just snorted a lot of creatine. I think is the best way of explaining it. So reenactment fights generally don't have the full contact rules in play, the limited contact rules.
Yeah.
A bunch of reenactors just went, well, what if we didn't? And what if we just went at it? All right, there's potentially a lot of injuries, and there are, and that's where it started. That is its base roots. Now, it has grown a lot since those early days where it was just, so we just hit each other. Yeah, sod it, that sounds good. Let me just neck this beer and let's go fight. Then as it became its own established sport, which it's very close to, if not already is, that it is very much a case of they're getting in full armour, their armour is built particular ways to withstand serious punishment, so it's not just some cheap steel that's been panel beat out, it's heat treated, it's shaped, it's all the rest of it.
Okay.
And it is designed for full contact. So even within HEMA, historical fencing, whatever brand of flavour you want to call that side of things, there is a limited contact where I'm not trying to bash my opponent down into the ground. Bowhurt does that.
I've just realised no one can see my face right now. My jaw is on the floor. That is wild.
I love them because where HEMA has more techniques involved because of the rule set, so we are allowed to thrust within historical fencing. Bowhurt is not, because those weapons have fuck all flex to them.
Oh.
They are a crowbar with a hilt.
Oh my God.
And they are just going to bash hard. And they are fantastic. Like, you want a pressure test of technique, go talk to a Bowhurt guy and get him to hit you. Because you will find out whether you can survive a hit. No word of a lie. If it wasn't the fact the armour would cost me the small house deposit, I'd be in there. The physicality and the fitness side from a Bowhurt perspective is sky high. Because you're wearing armour that's 30 kilos upwards. 30 kilos being the lower end. If you're getting really pricing getting some titanium kit, fair play to you, you have more money than sense, more power to you. Keep those blacksmiths in trade. A lot of them start blacksmithing because they like armour. Crack on.
Even just thinking about it, I can feel my joints crying out for help.
Oh, I have no doubt I would start drinking again just to cure the pain of my joints, but I would be a happy man as I did it. But where Bohurt and HEMA differentiate is a case of Bohurt, while it has its pro fights and duels, the one-on-one scenario, they're more like a boxing match in the sense of there's people counting hits. How many hits you get off within this 3-minute period. But then they also have the group fights, where most historical fencing focuses on the one-on-one duel, which is mostly what is there, and mostly what's recorded in the history in terms of manuals and presentation. Bohurt, yeah, we knew people fought in groups. So let's get a 5-on-5 match going.
Wild. Absolutely wild.
It is great fun to watch in some of the best, and someone who likes technique where, you know, most of Bohurt doesn't have the same level of technique, but it's still technical. It's just a different style of technique. You're doing power hits consistently, and you're trying to chain attacks and get your defense in the right time while you're throwing heavy haymakers. Yeah, it's physical, it's demanding, and I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, my stamina could not even take even just maintaining that kind of power consistently. Yeah.
It's one of the things when I did do a bit of training with it, like very soft touch. I dipped my toes in the water, went, whoa, that's going to cost me a lot, and I'm poor. And, you know, I'm not exactly the easiest frame to arm and armour. Although there's so many people in that sphere that would just love to give me a poleaxe and let me go ham. But the whole notion is I did a little bit and I was just going, yeah, no, the physicality demands outweigh anything you experience within historical fencing training. So our training doesn't extend that far, but we do have people within the order who enjoy getting dressed up in armour, that would love to get full weight armour and train and practice, because that was a part of the thing. It's what HEMA's obsession with calling things by German names is its own kettle of fish, but it's what's called Harnessfechten. So it is essentially fighting in harness. So that's what we would call armour. That is a huge part of a HEMA practice. We have folks in the order who love getting kitted up and training.
Yeah.
Big Connor has his own armour and absolutely does wear it over his gambeson, and how he does it is beyond me. But it is great fun to fight, because now my techniques have to differ. I can't just go, I've got to cut to your stomach. Wait, that was a cuirass. Oh, crap, that's not going to work. Armpit, neck, where's his bit? Where's the gaps? As a fighter, as a martial artist, that's fascinating to fight.
Yeah. For context, by the way, Connor is one of the instructors at Nottingham.
Yes, and they are very used to seeing him in armour, and it's always fun when he gets it out for a play.
Yeah, definitely. As much as like we do the group fights and stuff at the end of our big events, so when we do the group fights at the musters and stuff, I don't think I could even think about how much power you have to put behind it in Bohurt.
You're also beating through armour, and the way that Bohurt works, it's not a couple of hits and you're out. It's you have to submit. You go down to the ground and take a knee, or you fall on the deck because you've been hit so hard you don't want to be in that fight anymore because you're just hurting.
Yeah.
Or you get thrown. Or you get knocked off your feet. I mean, just a quick YouTube video. It's a YouTube dive and a half watching a crap load of Bohurt, but you see like fights going up from 5v5 up to 12v12, 20 versus 20.
Oh my God.
When they've got teams together, 50 versus... Yeah, and they're all... You're thinking, that's a lot of steel.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, yeah. And it's great fun to watch.
Yeah, I don't think I could watch it for that long, because I'd just be like cringing at every single really hard hit.
Oh, I wince.
Yeah.
I wince every time. But Bohurt is absolutely not just beyond a valid practice, I think it's a critical practice that, as someone who lives close to HEMA, we should be paying attention to, going, no, this fancy technique I'm trying here versus, oh no, he's just gone in and hit me with an axe straight to the face. Like, the simple brutality of Bohurt really brings you into mind of, no, people will have just slugged the crap out of each other given the opportunity. So your fancy technique you're trying better stand up to some weapons-grade violence.
Yeah.
And Bohurt provides in spades.
It's such a test of strength. It's such a...
Hugely.
Yeah, you can have like all your fun techniques and stuff, but if you're not protecting yourself and blocking as hard as you should be, you're going to get a hit.
It is one of the biggest parts where I think Bohurt should be part of everyone's practice. I mean, I'll go into sort of my final thoughts on training in a bit, but the armoured and particularly the heavy contact armoured side of the sport, martial art, culture, whatever we're doing here, should be kept in mind at all times and respected for what it is.
Yeah.
Because a guy unarmoured, you've got one mistake. A guy in full armour who is well covered, well made, and well protected, you're going, crap, it's going to take a lot more to get through.
Yeah.
Most of my ideas of combat have just gone out the window because you're wearing protection. Yeah, it's different. It's very different, and I think it should be something we keep in mind and not just hand wave, but I'm not doing that, therefore this works. Right, fine. But from my perspective, I should be good enough across the board that I can deal with that when it occurs.
Yeah. I think having that as like not so much an end goal, but something that you can also work towards and be like, I can build my stamina up to this level if I really pull my finger out, basically. And I think that's such a fantastic way of looking at your training and how you start building up your stamina, your resilience. I think it should be appreciated more, if I'm honest.
I'd be honest, it's my training goal. If I could move and do all my techniques in armour and still fight as well within a HEMA context, fantastic. It's what I should be aiming for.
They just don't tell you how sweaty it gets under that armour. Oof.
Yeah, I mean, God, you see people who do it on a weekend at LARP and they come away, they're wearing the full armour, mad respect to them. They come off a battlefield that's lasted 2 hours and they are dripping buckets worth.
Yeah, you have to peel it off them. It's wild.
Yep. And LARP itself has such a huge context which shouldn't be overstated by people who practice these other sports.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you're not hitting as hard, but you're in a completely asymmetric warfare situation. The opponents could have things that are specifically designed to take you out the fight.
Yeah.
And, all right, it's a game, but so are most people playing around with weapons. They're still playing a game. The game is sword tag, for want of a better term. You know, I'm just trying to touch you with this weapon and we're going to call it a hit. Bow hurt is sword knockdown, for want of a better term. You know, I'm going to keep hitting you till you get on the deck.
Yeah.
LARP is just a case of, it's a variable rule set with different conditions thrown in. I think for a martial artist, it's very interesting to go, here is a bunch of mad weapons and everyone's crazy ideas thrown on. How do you fight it? Now, I'll be first to admit, I've got my ass handed to me within a LARP context more times than I care to count.
Yeah.
But it is interesting from a tactical perspective of going, okay, what tactics work, what tactics don't, and why? Your training should be able to map the reasons why things don't work as much as confirming what does. And if you can understand why something doesn't work and fit it better to the situation you're in and help yourself train, more power to it.
There are so many things to think about in the LARP community as well, especially if you're going to a fantasy-based one like Curious Pastimes, for example, where you have to think about spells as well as the weapons that you're dealing with.
I mean, it's obviously, for most people who want to focus on the more history side of things, this sounds daft. But if I'm wielding a weapon and I've got arming sword and shield and I'm going, right, I'm going to bop someone, suddenly some bloody wizard decides, no, shatter that sword. My sword's now broken. Now, in the context of historical duels, that's not going to happen. Magic isn't really a thing, despite everyone's idea that it probably should be.
Yeah.
But what else could go wrong with that sword? You know, it could have been battered to hell over this hour of contact, and it's come loose and the pommel's gone. Okay, now that sword is practically useless in some sword manufacturers. That's coming apart. That sword has broken.
Yeah.
Is the blade pitted to hell and it has no edge? You know, there's a bunch of reasons why that sword wouldn't be effective. I've now got to think of another way of fighting with respect to what I've got to face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's silly. It's great because it's silly. But from a martial artist point of view, you are going to have a rapidly changing conditions. I mean, some effects like repel, so you've got to be pushed back 10 feet. Okay, I intended to charge, got hit by repel. Okay, that charge was rebuffed.
Yeah.
Can I charge again? Do I look at something else? You know, some things like I'm middle of a fight and someone knocks me on my ass, like a strike down spell. Okay, now I'm on the floor. I can't stop fighting.
It really gets your brain working, I think, as well, because you have to adapt to the situation around you, especially on that battlefield context. in LARP. As much as, yeah, it's a fantasy-based thing that we do, and you're just playing a game and you're playing pretend, it still makes you think about all the different factors and variables in fighting and the community as well.
I think that's the thing. There's a lot of different things going on at LARP which go beyond just I'm here for my training.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I am there for a lot of reasons. Personal training is one of them. In historical fencing, we do, a couple of rounds, lasting maybe 4 or 5 minutes on average. Maybe we're extending it to a couple of mad ones. But very rarely do we doing anything more than an hour. Most LARP battlefields are about an hour, 2 hours in length. Suddenly your fitness is now tested in a different way. Can you maintain a high performance at the end of that fight?
Yeah.
Can you be still doing your techniques when you're all out of gas?
I feel so bad for the people in like full chainmail at LARP doing that for 2 hours.
Yep, it's knackering. You really learn how to fit your kit well.
Oh yeah, definitely. So we're going to go on a break and we will come back for the Q&A.
Awesome. See you in a bit then.
See you in a bit. Hello, welcome back to the Before the Battle podcast. Now, we're going to do our Q&A section, which is my favourite section. I love doing this so much.
I sometimes worry about the questions.
Oh, these are all fantastic questions submitted by our Discord once again. These are mostly from one of our instructors at the Coventry chapter, Dan. He is incredible. He's such a fun guy to be around, honestly.
And really picking up his competitive game as well, which is great to see.
So this one is from someone else, this first one. How do you help someone understand something that isn't working for them? So
that is honestly about 90% of my job as an instructor. So I should get this one right.
Hopefully.
Well, we'll find out. The biggest thing I've got to do when somebody is struggling to understand a technique is try and understand where they are with it right now. Because I could keep hammering the same point over and over again. Like, if I can identify you're making X mistake, I can see that. Maybe the person who's trying a technique can also understand they are making that mistake. Me just repeating that as some sort of mantra as if it's going to fix the world, it's not going to work. What I need to do is understand it from their perspective. Once I understand it from their perspective, I can then go about actually unpicking where there's maybe a misunderstanding. Maybe there's a timing issue that's just not working for them. Maybe it's mechanical. I don't know the full scale of the problem until I'm in their headspace and seeing what they're seeing. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Once I have that, I can start unpicking it. Now, it's not going to make complete logical sense to me because I understand martial arts the way I do. It is going to be different for someone else. So there's a bit of work I've got to do to unplug my brain and not worry so much about how I do things and actually plug in their brain and figure out how they're trying to do things. Because even in there's going to be a disconnect in how we do things. I can't just supplant my method onto someone else. I went into this a little bit on the last episode where once I give you a technique, it's your technique, not mine.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing I really keep in my head as I'm training. If somebody's struggling, I've got to keep in mind that they're not trying to mimic me. They're trying to recreate what I've told them or what I've shown them. So there's always going to be a little bit of difference. And if I just try and make it the same, it's not going to work. Not to the same efficacy. It has to make sense at the level of their understanding. And that's what I have to target, not so much the end expression.
Okay. Following up from this, how do you manage when a student doesn't gel with your teaching style?
That's always a fun one. In some ways, I have to change how I teach. It's, as with combat styles, there's multiple combat styles that any one person can have any one time. I have my default state, but then I can change to other variables as opponents come up against me. The same way with teaching. I have my baseline teaching style, which is a lot more, I'll demonstrate a move, I'll go into detail about it, and then let you rebuild it on your own. That's my default. Some people may need more direction. Some people just need showing a thing and then they can sort of pick it up on their own speed. They don't need someone hovering over the shoulders. I have to adapt how I instruct to meet that student.
So does your teaching style depend from student to student? So if one student is struggling with it in one way and another student is struggling with it in a different way, do you have to adapt that per student?
Absolutely. This is why I love teaching one-on-one, because I have the luxury to just become that blank slate of, I'm a load of information, we need to get this into your brain.
Yeah.
The teacher, the conduit for that, is irrelevant. I just make the thing happen.
Okay.
So big group style, difficult, because I have to get a baseline across to as many people as I can, which is where my defaults serve pretty well, and I've done for a while. Maybe some classes are different, and I will adjust that based on who I'm seeing. But then once I've done my big group presentation, I will then go into one-to-one, small group, and go, right, have I got this right for you? Is there any misunderstandings? And just check per person and do a lot of the work there.
Okay, because as you said in the last episode, that teaching doesn't stop when the fight hour starts. You still have to continue helping those students, trying to understand and trying to put those into practice.
Oftentimes, I've found, particularly within our groups where we have the first half of the session is drills and technical, the second half is sparring. I've often found them doing more of the harder teaching in the second hour because somebody's having a scrap over somewhere else. I'm just answering questions and really picking technique apart. With someone else, it really gets interesting when people start doing that.
I really enjoy having that one-on-one time with an instructor when I can't understand it. That's mostly what I use the fight hour for, if I just can't click with what's being said.
Well, I think that's where I like to call it open training rather than sparring hour, really. I mean, that's more of a technical, picky thing on my part. But you don't have to do sparring all the time. Sometimes you've got a technique in your head that you just need to get out through repeated drills under pressure. That's when you're in a sparring, you go nuts. So, for me, when you do find people who do gel one-to-one, it is some of the more rewarding teaching experience because you've spent time with that one person. You understand that person better. So next time you come along with a problem, I've already got some variables in my head as to how you're thinking and how you're wanting to do things. That will give me a chance to teach you better because I'm already knowing where your head's at to a degree. Not perfectly. I'm not psychic. God, that'd be terrifying if I was.
Yeah, no. I don't even want to think about it.
Next question.
Right. How do you address the point of this technique works at higher speeds without explicitly saying so?
If you cannot explain why, you're talking out your ass.
Fair enough.
Is unfortunately where it boils down to. If a technique doesn't work why would a technique work at low speeds where it wouldn't at higher and vice versa? If you have a technique that only works at high speed, in a slow speed presentation, is it because the opponent has reaction time? Just more physical time to see that move coming in? Possibly. That would be my first port of call if I was assessing that situation. But then you would have to demonstrate that. Okay. So it's not just a case of you. I'm very much try and avoid teaching on faith. So just because I'm an instructor and I say a thing doesn't make it true. If I can say a thing, then back it up by evidence, presentation, demonstration, then it has some validity. But again, for some people, that speed of training may not be something they're interested in, may not be something they want to participate in right now. So if I present a technique, it has to work not on a function of speed, but on a function of theory. So they understand why it works and what is the mechanic I'm actually targeting. Because if I'm explicitly targeting reaction speed with a technique, as I have done with a couple of lessons I've ran recently, I've made it very clear that this is what this is aimed at and explained why that works. But then I have seen people, once they understand why a technique works, they can actually then recreate it better because they're doing the right thing for the right job. Just saying it works if you go faster isn't an answer at all. It's not even an explanation. All you're doing there is running a risk of injury.
Especially if this technique is like being taught to new people who are starting out. I can imagine how terrifying that must be if you just hear, oh, this works better when it's faster.
Well, it's not an answer. It's not an answer at all. And if I heard anybody saying that, I think I'd be having, what's the polite term, a one-way conversation minus tea and biscuits.
Fair enough.
It would be a very much case of, no, you can't do that. That's not an option in this game. I try and particularly approach sword players in martial art more from an intellectual point of view with a physical expression that's bloody knackering.
Yeah.
If I can understand and explain it clearly, what I'm trying to do, then it's good. If I can't, and then I have to go on some half-baked excuse of this makes more sense if you just train it, no. I have to do better as an instructor.
Okay. That is really good to know, actually. Really, really good to know. Okay. Next question. What do you do when life gets in the way?
You mean as it always does?
Yeah.
Roll with the punches. I mean, I have this ideal in my head that I hit the gym multiple times a week. I hit all the training sessions. I eat well, and I get at least 8 hours sleep a night. You're laughing because you know the lie all of that was.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. It's a case of you do what you can when you can. So if I sit here and go, right, I can't make the gym today because I just needed to sleep more, I needed to look after myself, or I needed to do X, Y, Z jobs. Okay, I'll make the gym when I can. Very few times do we actually get complete control over our lives and timings to a degree where everything can be itemized and sectioned out completely. Life throws weird curveballs at us. If you're going to get hung up over those curveballs and not be able to adapt your lifestyle around to go, no, I can't hit the gym right now, but I will later. Or it's a case of, God, I really fancy chocolate cake. And I'm saying that because I do right now.
Me too.
All right, cool. So just get a small one. Or, all right, indulge, but then no, you're going to pay for it later. I'm going to have to put some work in. It is that case of you have to roll with the punches to make them work for you, not stop you.
Okay. It's nice knowing that other people aren't alone in their experiences where they're like, oh, I just can't do this because this has happened. It's always good to hear that no one's alone in those situations.
And I think it's one of the biggest fallacies that people, when they do experience difficulties, that think it is so unique to them. And it really isn't.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of times I've been training with people and they've just gone, you know what, honestly, I could not be asked. I'm like, yeah, fair, been there. And all I want to do is just, sit down, watch some TV, play some games. That's a part of your brain telling you, mate, we're knackered. Like, we are done. It would take a serious level of discipline to overcome that and train.
Yeah.
A lot of people would say that's what you should be aiming for. I'd be inclined to agree up to the point where it doesn't actually damage your health and put you in a worse mood. Because if you're trading mood and other parts of your health, of which chilling the fuck out is one, for constantly being at the gym or concentrating or doing things you quote-unquote should be doing, then I'd argue how effective it is.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of give and take there for a healthy balance between the two extremes.
How do you deal with a lack of motivation?
Mostly figure out what the core reasons why I'm doing this thing is for. So to give an example right now, I have very little motivation to commit to a rewrite of my syllabus, despite the fact it needs it. I have trouble sitting down to even put 500 words down the page, even though I have said way more than 5,000 words in this podcast.
I'm just good like that. What can I say?
Yeah, you dragged the worst out of me, Caden. Well done. But the whole thing is a case of I have to assess what the motivation is. Like, why am I doing this rewrite? And if I can't accept that reason for the rewrite is enough on its own, okay, then maybe there's something else getting in the way. Maybe I haven't, slept well, or I haven't, had a drink recently, or I'm not on my coffee. And the coffee's usually it, truth be told. But if my motivation for doing the thing isn't right, that's where my biggest hurdle is 9 times out of 10. And I would say for most people, reassess your motivation. And all right, if it's not there, if you're like that motivation doesn't outweigh the drag effect of whatever else is going on in your life, fair play, take it easy and give yourself some grace and tackle it later.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Really, really, really good advice.
And when motivation does hit and it does overcome your drag factor of life being life and lifing, hammer it. Just go ham. Just really commit to that job at that moment. So when you come around to it next time, you go, no, I did enough last time. I can take it easy. And then they can assess, is my motivation enough right now?
Yeah, that's incredible advice. Really, really good advice.
Wish I followed it more.
How do you form friendships in martial arts?
Easily. So that's a flippant answer. Let me go into detail.
Please.
When you are training in martial arts, particularly combat and contact sports, where if I'm training against someone else, my body is largely at their disposal. That sounds messy, but what I'm really trying to get at is a case of my body is there. I am willing to put myself in a position where you can now train effectively as an opponent, as a training partner.
Yeah.
That brings with it an inherent level of trust, which surpasses a lot of things. I mean, you all have a shared interest. Number one, you are all in the same classroom learning swordplay or martial arts or whatever it is you're focused on. You're all there for the same thing. You have a common point of interest. Now, if you can both get to that same point where you're willing to put yourselves on the line and trust the other person not to be a complete weapons-grade twat, then you're in a really good position for a good friendship, because you have to trust the other person. If you don't put yourself in that position, and that's not a good foundation for any sort of communication. Any friendship does have a level of trust involved, which martial arts has to address from very early stages. So you break up, it's a big icebreaker on its own. Not to mention, you have ultimately a shared interest, so exploring where that's come from. I mean, let's face it, I am of the generation which saw Lord of the Rings and Star Wars in the cinema as a young kid, and that has probably led me to this point in a way I probably shouldn't think about too much before my therapist charges me. But that's where it came from. I wonder how many people have the same experience. Maybe that's a shared point of interest where we both enjoy the same things external to the martial art we're talking about.
Yeah.
So friendships can be really easily made in martial arts. I would say that the danger of that is the case of as well. Don't just rely on the martial art to be the reason for the friendship. Make it an additional thing that happens because you happen to be friends as well as, not because of.
Yeah.
It's a really challenging one because, again, people like to form their little tribes of people who enjoy the same thing. Like, I take a look at the Order of the Blade. I don't think it would surprise anyone who knows some of our members that there is a large following of people who enjoy Warhammer 40k. There's a lot of us that do. We have entire threads in our Discord devoted to the damn thing.
We do.
I'm also one of them. But
I am not.
Yeah, that's fair. But, I mean, those of us that do, we are playing games outside of it. We're enjoying the laws. We're sharing memes about it, basically. We're having fun without the martial art being the reason for us being in the same room or sharing the same space. Martial art is just the accent to it where we both go, hey, we also like this thing.
Yeah.
But I would say that level of trust you have to overcome in training will make some pretty solid friends.
We got really lucky at the Coventry chapter because we're all quite close friends. We go out on nights out and we all do LARP together. As well as people from other chapters, do not get me wrong, they do get involved in stuff. But the Cov lot is so tight-knit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I loved being there. I really did.
It's a sort of thing where, particularly as an instructor, I do get kind of jealous about because I'm not as involved down at that level because I am removed, because I am the guy running the show. I am making all the systems work and all the rest of it. I try and keep the two things separate. Not to say I don't have friends from within the group, because I do. Some pretty good ones. But it's a distinction where people can understand I have to say horrible things now because I'm instructor and have to deal with some of the stuff that comes up in training, or I'm just to make gaffing.
Yeah.
Those are two very different hats, and unless people can differentiate that, it's one of those things where I personally have to go, no, I'm going to take a step back and just absorb this, because I see it go wrong when instructors do try and become everyone's mate.
Yeah.
And that's a line I've seen go wrong too many times and don't want to go down myself, not with what we have, which does a lot of people a load of good.
Mm. Do you keep these friends that you make in martial arts separate from other friends from like work, school, uni? Do you keep them separate? Do you think you should keep them separate?
I don't think so. I don't. I mean, I'm in a weird one because my work is this.
Yeah.
So I can't keep them separate from work because they are my work. But when I'm talking to other people who aren't even connected to my job or my current training, yeah, I'm including them. I'm including what I do and who's involved. Because if they're enjoying the conversation with me and it is pertinent to a conversation I know I've had with other people, yeah, I'll bring them up. Absolutely. And then naturally, oh, how do you know the big guy? Oh, he teaches me sword. For chuff's sake, you're one of them. It's typically how that conversation goes. But it's always an icebreaker point, and I quite like the fact I am an icebreaker for most people. So, oh, you know, the big guy. Right, all right then. Fucking hell, that idiot. It's always a nice one where I can, introduce people to it. And hell, if enough friends from different fields share an interest, there may be a chance those interests overlap. which is only a benefit for me because there's more people in swords, and then there's more people having fun outside of swords, which is awesome across the board.
Yeah. I will say, I do really enjoy introducing my outside friends into HEMA because they all just seem so in awe with everything that we do at the Order, as well as like other clubs and stuff like that. They just seem so like, holy shit, you guys do this? This looks so cool.
I think it's one of the nice things for me. I mean, I've experienced a lot from the LARP side where, you know, people have got wind that, you know, I do this for a job. A lot of people asking me, you know, where can I get involved? And sometimes I'm not in their area, but I'm always signposting to other groups in their areas. Maybe it's they like the reenactment side, but also I'm posting more towards there. Maybe they want the more bowhurt side, so I'm pointing where I can. I'm trying to get people to what interests them.
Yeah.
And when people are openly sharing their interests and their hobbies and things they enjoy doing, there's a more authentic connection than just, hey, I happen to do this thing as well. Vague person, that's the only sharing point we've got. I'd rather know what your interests are, because if I can help, I want it.
I really enjoy it. I remember introducing one of my friends to the Order of the Blade at one of the musters that we put on, like one of our big events, and he just looked around and looked so excited to see everything. I went over and introduced him to Ross, who's one of our instructors, and showed him the batleth and everything, and he just was like, oh my god, this is so cool. Yeah, it's so much fun.
As much as a traction that HEMA historical fencing is getting, you know, it's still not quote-unquote mainstream yet.
Yeah.
So when you see people going, who may have been wanting to get involved in this sort of thing, or had an idea that, hey, that'd be cool if I could, and then you find out it's a thing, you see those people, and their eyes just light up, and you're going, got you. Hook, line, sinker, part of the fishing rod.
Yep.
You're in.
We've got 2 more questions left.
Love it.
Okay, this is a good one. How do you know when it's time to move on from a gym, a dojo, or a club?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one on a personal level because you may have invested a lot of time in that group. But the biggest thing is if you're not getting anything out of it and you find yourself putting in without a reward for that effort on your part, you should be thinking, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of this? Now, that does sort of put the idea that any sort of instructor-student-member relationship is inherently transactional, and yeah, it is. That's one of the really hard things. So when I'm teaching in an instructor role, I am giving away my knowledge and my understanding, my experience.
Yeah.
Nicely, because this is my job, they're giving me money. Brilliant. For some people, that's not the case. You know, it's a case of they happen to be teaching because they're altruistic like that, or they want to have an instructor position. That's what they want to do. They're getting some value by being the instructor. But if you in an effort, and that includes instructors, if you are part of a class environment and you are not getting out of it to the same or greater level than you're putting in, reassess what's going on. Particularly in volunteer scenarios, and this is where I'm talking about particularly volunteer instructors. They're not getting paid. They're going there to teach the class and they're not getting anything else out of it. For me, then, it is about, okay, so I'm putting all this in. I'm not getting anything out of it. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do it in this level, this capacity. Okay. Then straight conversation, change your capacity. Just be a student again. Go learn some more stuff. Go have the freedom to practice what makes you happy rather than be in charge of someone else's training or direct it or help them learn. If, as a student, you're not getting anything out of it, okay, first protocol, go talk to your instructor. You know, I'm not feeling I'm advancing. I'm not feeling I'm getting anything out of this. Is there anything more we can do? Instructors, if they particularly got a large number of people in the room, 15, 20 people, may not have eyes on every single individual because in a 2-hour lesson, 20 people, I've got 3 minutes, three 6 minutes with you before I'm having to move on.
Yeah.
That's not going to give me a good snapshot uptime of you. So I may have not been giving you the material you need. But even if after that you're still finding I'm not getting anything, then it's not a bad thing to look elsewhere. To go, what else is available? Can I switch to new weapons? Can I move to a different club that has a different training ethos? Those things aren't a problem. I mean, each person's martial journey is unique to them.
100%, yeah.
As an instructor, yes. Instructor, businessman, I want them to stay with me. I want to do it because I feel like I can offer them something and offer them a lot more. That's my job as an instructor. That's how I get paid. If I'm not able to do that for that person, I would not want to stifle them. I'll go, look, best will in the world, I can't serve your interests as well as I would like to. I would advise these other people who may do better. And it's hard.
Okay.
It can be really hard to move on from a group you've grown attached to, either by friendships, affiliations, as you said, you're going on nights out with each other, you're sharing that social community. But then you have to give that up because your training needs aren't being met. You don't always have to give it up, particularly if it's not there's no animosity in you having to move elsewhere. You're still connecting outside of the martial art, which is why I brought that up specifically.
Yeah.
If you have to move on to improve yourself and that's what you want to do, you've got to do it. And there should be no hard feelings for someone moving away for good reasons. And I'm not getting what I want out of this, I need to move somewhere else, is a very good reason from a martial perspective.
So in our case, we have, as much as we have a bunch of clubs across the UK now, it's still quite difficult to find HEMA groups in places that aren't big cities.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 in Plymouth that I know of. How would you go about helping someone if they needed to move for personal reasons? How would you go about? Would you recommend them different clubs? Would you get them in talks with other instructors from different chapters or different clubs? How would you go about that to help that transition be more smooth?
So if there was another chapter in the area, one of ours, is a dead easy switch. Just go train under them.
Yeah.
There's going to be an adjustment period as you get used to a new group and a new environment. Because even though it's the same chapters, there's going to be different people.
Yeah.
People are people, and you need to adjust to them. But if it's a different city that doesn't have one of our groups but has another group, I would usually go out my way to make introductions on their behalf and go, hey, I've got this person coming across. They've done this, 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 and this. They've got to this sort of level. Would you like them as part of your group? So I try and pave the way for them to get into that environment if they were interested.
Okay.
And that's something I've done multiple times across the board.
That's great. That is really great.
But then at the same time, if there is someone who hasn't got access to a local area, they don't have access to a chapter that's near them, whether ours or another person's, I try and stay in touch with them and just keep them on training 1-to-1. So I may go and visit them as part of my job and go, hey, I'm going to give you some lessons to run through over the next couple of months until you want another session, and we'll just keep going, refresh it every now and then.
Okay.
Or it could be a case of you send me videos, I critique them, I send you back videos, you go and try and recreate them, or we just stay in contact and keep chatting. There's a whole bunch of ways you can stay involved within your training without having access to a group. A group, for most people, I say most people because not everyone is the same experience, but for most people, it is the best way to develop your training.
Yeah.
But if you don't have access to it, doesn't mean it's not the only way. There are others.
Okay, our final question. What's better, consistency or intensity?
Oh, God. I'd have to say consistency. Context to that one matters a lot. So if you have intense session, let's say you go once a month, which is a really hard session, but you're knackered and broken, you've picked up an injury that takes you out for a couple of weeks. That's going to suck.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been part of intense sessions where I've not been right for 2 or 3 days after training. Like, I've still got a niggle, like a pronounced limp in a leg because it's just overworked. Those suck.
Yeah.
And the after effect can be, I don't want to go through that again. But little and often, so it's nowhere near as intense, but you're consistently training you're there every week, every 2 weeks, whatever your rota looks like for you. And you're supplementing with, little flow drills in a day, or you're having your mind process moves when you're waiting for the toast to pop in the morning, or you're waiting for the kettle to boil. You're always thinking about, what can I do? What's the next bit? And it's those little drip feeds of training are super important. Now, you're going to need some intensity training at some point. But if I had to pick between the two, give me consistency every day of the week. If you look, this is taking this example to its extreme presentation, would be you look at like Shaolin temples. Most of the stuff you see them do is the big, expressive, intense demonstrations of physical skill.
Yeah.
What's most of their work? It's slow, low-level, consistent training. It's hard on the body, but it's consistent.
Okay.
That builds up your resilience and training over time. If you had a drink that's 100 mils, but you had 100 mils every day, or you drank a litre once every 2 weeks. In that very crude example, you are drinking more by the 100 mils every day.
Yeah.
Training works exactly the same way. Now, it's not as big a chunk, and you may not feel like as much, but it's one of the weird quirks of human nature. We're creatures of instant gratification for the most part. We want to feel the effect of things done, like, now.
The example that you gave is a really, really good way of putting it, actually, as well, because you can't really survive without water, without like a drink of water after 3 days. You need to continuously be doing that to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Putting it as an extreme example is a fantastic way of looking at it.
But it's the same way when you look, like, if you do take gym training seriously. Like, if you work a muscle up over a couple of months, and you've seen some progress, but then you don't train for a month, most of your progress is gone.
Yeah.
Even if you did nothing, you built up to that muscle, and then you went every 2 or 3 days and just worked at that same level, you would maintain that muscle. So you can have one intense session knocks you out for 2 weeks. You're going to find when you come back, you have to start lower to build back up again.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest things to get over human nature of instant gratification, if I want to feel like I've progressed. But consistency is low and slow progress. We don't see the changes, but over time they add up to a huge amount of change. And that's where the difference is made. It's the same thing with, you see a lot of like weight loss advice. You don't want to see big jumps in number down because you're probably going to rebound. You want to see that consistent change over a period of months. And the day-to-day doesn't feel as great. You don't feel the difference, but over the course of time, you are going to feel it. Same with training. If you every single day spent 5 minutes just working from any position, just snapping up into a block or a parry position, over 2 months of you doing that every single day, that block is going to be really bloody quick.
It's so draining, though, when you're not seeing that progress, like, keep going up and up and up as quick as you would like it to.
Yep.
Especially for, like, your weight loss example, if you're not seeing those numbers go down, you're like, oh, I just want to get this over with, so I'll just fast for however time that you want to. And it's just like, that could damage you in the long run because of how intense that is.
Completely. But this is where goal setting and timing of that is crucial. It's one of the things, and we can link it back to the differences in training we started at right at the start of this podcast. Where you've got your reenactment, your BOHA, your HEMA, historical fencing, LARP.
Yeah.
All this map of different training methods. Well, they're all different for a reason. They're trying to achieve different things. I wouldn't put someone who is trying to, just get better at their LARP game, for example. I wouldn't put them through the same workout and beast them like I would a bowhurt fighter who is looking for something a lot more physical.
Yeah.
You wouldn't do the same thing. But if you're very clear about what you want to do, and links back into what you asked me about motivation for doing a task that you just don't want to bloody do, how do you consistently get there? Examine your core motivation. Again, why do I want to do this? Well, I want to lose X weight. Okay, but like in your example, you fast, what's going to happen? You're going to rebound, you're going to eat a crap meal, it's going to taste fucking amazing because been there, done it, and know how taste buds work under fasting. Yep. Food just tastes so much better. But you're going to pile weight back on and you're going to have a hard time actually getting back into that consistent rhythm again. You're going to fuck it up.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of people, the hardest bit for a lot of long-term goal setting is understanding that you are not going to feel or see that change take place. I mean, I'll take my example right now. I'm in the process of losing weight. I'm getting back into training and I'm starting to regain some of my edge when I'm fencing properly.
Nice.
I don't feel it. I don't feel it day to day. But then, particularly last night when I trained, I had a sparring match against a new person I'd never met. Great time.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody who trains with me just went, you could see you're getting back to your game. And I couldn't feel it. I catalogued all my mistakes, but the person who was watching me went, no, I can see you getting back into it. You're picking your groove again. And that's huge.
Sometimes you need like an outside opinion to tell you how well you're doing.
Yeah, very much so.
If you're not seeing it yourself, you're never going to see it. Like, you always think about the bad things because that's all you ever hear yourself saying.
Yeah.
It's the same with a one-sided story. If you're only hearing the bad things about someone, that's all you're going to think of them.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it. So when you ask, like, consistency versus intensity, even, if you feel crap 90% of the time, but you get that 10%, you go, right, now I'm going to do a really big burst and go for it. That's going to do you all right in the moment, but you're relying on a lot of other factors. If you can build consistency in, which takes place irrespective of what a lot of things going on around you, you can maintain that consistency in whatever form that takes. That's when you're going to see more long-term and long-lasting results.
Perfect. We are coming to the end now. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been a really educational episode, considering I didn't know much about our main topic today. I have really, really enjoyed myself. So once again, where can we find Order of the Blade?
So if you've gone to our website, orderoftheblade.co.uk, a lot of our links will be on there. Embedded at the bottom of that page will be all of our Facebook, Instagram, and particularly our Discord links. Our Discord server is active, and we draw most of our questions from there. And I know you usually put up questions for the podcast episode and just get a lot of responses. We can't get through them all, otherwise that would just be a pure Q&A podcast. We're also on that website. You can find our various chapters. We've got 8 of them now, so you can go find out where we train. And yeah, feel free to come along and join us.
Perfect. This podcast is on Spotify and YouTube. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you all for listening. And we will catch you later.
See you on the next one, guys.